This is to the cabinet of the Trump administration. I follow a cue from Michael Popak, Legal AF. I follow that inspiration. However, I'm going to offer an argument I find plausibly novel. I'm only going to offer the one argument right here. Now, I don't have Amendment 25 in front of me. And I would do well to put it in front of myself and internalize it and so forth. However, I don't really believe that its basis is going to be all that complicated. Because all you really need to salvage in order to press on with the removal from office procedure is some kind of robust concept of unfitness that we can demonstrate that the president is unfit for office, that he lacks capacities. He lacks the capacity to understand the world, to keep track of the world, already I've made half the argument. If you're really paying attention, you already see where I'm going. Okay, let's now consider, let's put that aside, my considerations about whatever I've said. What I've described is roughly the ability to track status quo reality, everyday reality. Okay. We'll put that aside. Now consider just the straightforward concept of the mental unwellness or mental unfitness. Now, as we know, Donald Trump is experiencing some form of cognitive decline. That much seems fairly well demonstrated. Whether it's called dementia or Alzheimer's or in the words of Pump Sullivan, dumb factory. Or maybe it was Welch. Okay. Right? So, unwellness. Unwellness by cognitive decline or just straight up insanity. I mean, let's suppose that Donald Trump was endured severe hardship as a child, growing up in the Trump household, which must not have been exactly a walk in the park. So we imagine, or at least I do, in the case of some kind of cognitive decline like this, a kind of infantile regression to a more childlike, more simplistic mode of behavior. The particulars of Donald Trump's situation, because of the fact that he is unlikely to submit to any kind of medical evaluation, we are going only to be left speculating. I will add an asterisk in a parentheses right now, something I've been pondering, and that is the caduceus. The caduceus, pardon my pronunciation. What is the duty? What is the medical duty? If you are a psychiatrist right now, what is your duty? Do you have a duty to protect the society, or do you maintain fidelity to the notion of a duty to interview the patient? See, we don't hear from psychiatrists, because if they are treating a patient, for example, Donald Trump, they can't say anything by HIPAA. So this is a kind of paradox. If you have a moral obligation to interview the patient in order to diagnose them, but then if you do, you cannot. Well, no, I guess if there is an imminent threat, right, to other people, then there is a duty to warn. Correct? So, but we still are going in a circle here, because in other words, it's moot if Trump will refuse to be interviewed in a psychological sense. So forget it. So I don't know how how the lack of any kind of psychological interview affects how Amendment 25 will be used. But this is a message to the cabinet, I assert, because, and I speculate about the environment around the West Wing, or wherever it is that y'all hang out by the water cooler. Who knows what podcasts y'all listen to, right? Everybody listens to different shit. But now there is a media explosion. There is a massive media explosion at the very elemental, the set theoretic level. Ur elementa. The constitutive elements of a set. The constitutive elements of a set. Pardon me, regardless of whether Donald Trump has lost his mind, there's no way that he can keep up with the news because he's illiterate. Now, regardless of one's ideological commitments, whether you listen to the top 100 fascist podcasts or the top 100 democracy podcasts, or, take your pick, right? But there is a media explosion, so the greatest demonstration, or the heaviest piece of evidence that I have for arguing this way, is the preoccupation with like Ellison Family and stuff and taking over CBS or whatever the fuck. It's a total blind alley. It's a complete dead end. Because nobody's paying attention to mass market news now. Every individual custom, bespoke, curates their own news to whatever varying degrees, depending on how much of a taste for objectivity they have. There's a continuum between objectivity and entertainment, right? And all of our possibilities in staying informed fall somewhere in the spectrum between, on the one hand, basically objective science, and on the other hand, TMZ, tabloid style, rumor-based, speculative, sensationalistic journalism, right? And all of our possibilities for news and staying informed are some mixture across the board of everything. I mean, consider the podcast I've Had It, which is one of the major podcasts. They're very famous. Now, at once, you can hear 2 or 3 bougie and or woke-ish, progressive-ish, kind of bougie, woke, progressive, but heavy Southern accents, and you can hear very creative, lowbrow insults, such as, that wasn't the lowbrow insult, Cankles McTaco Tits. But at the same time, because of the fact that Jennifer Welch and maybe Pumps 2 are real, they're really into dogs. So they covered a story, and with footage and documentary and everything, and they told whatever the whole news story. I mean, it was real journalism, pardon me. They go in Wisconsin to like this experimental, like, I don't know what kind of experiments they were doing on beagles. And they showed just these cages of beagles. And they rescue some beagles, and it's like this human interest story, so it's very specific to one or several of the interests of those people on that show, on that podcast, according to their personal interests. These are very specific things. So you got beagles, you've got Cankles McTaco Tits, you've got Mike's Johnson, you've got Micro Penis Talk. This is just one podcast. Okay, so dear Trump cabinet members, y'all know this. I mean, there's probably at least one of you that regularly listens to I've Had It. right? I mean, if nothing else, just for, what do they call it? Opposition research. Yeah, I mean, you guys are doing all your opposition research, I guess. Now, now back to Donald Trump. Because of the fact that he doesn't believe in discourse, because he's an individual who is at any one time in all his 79 or 80 years or whatever it is, even once had the capacity to misspell the word KNOW as the word, quote, NO. Mistake the word NO for the word KNOW. That's the sign of an individual who's likely almost perfectly illiterate. He can pretend to read, he can pretend to write. We see the way he writes, obviously. He writes like a fourth grader. He writes like a fourth grader who's very badly behaved, who's never heard of manners. Didn't they teach manners in the Trump household? Apparently not. Common decency, respect, and all that? No. They taught none of that. And closely related is this disdain for discourse. Disdain for discourse. Spoken discourse. It's not taken seriously by the patriarchs of the Trump family. It's not taken, discourse is not taken seriously. Discourse as such. Which means that the very concept that news, information is moving now in the way that it does, it strikes me that Trump might not really even understand exactly what the proposition is. He might say, oh, well, it's all just reducible to mass market news. So then is there any way to disagree with him? No, actually, Mr. President, mass market news at this point really delivers little to no information. And by contrast, we have podcasts such as Legal AF, for example, or The Bulwark, or Lawfare, that expound and promulgate very robust kind of ethos. Specific. That's entirely application and platform specific. Everything goes into highly defined hyperspecificity. Things are much more complex now than simple dyadic distinctions, because now all predicates are gerrymandered, all of them. So it's my assertion, it is my assertion that a president who's incapable of following these arguments and incapable of curating for their own selves a selection of the most significant channels of journalism, then there's glaring unfitness for office, because we can't have a president who's uninformed. And if he's literally incapable of being informed because being informed is far too complex, then even if he's not demonstrably mentally unwell, he must be removed simply for unfitness, just due to the gross mismatch and asymmetry between the thought process involved or lack thereof and the complexity of the matters that need to be analyzed and judged properly. So Michael Popak is correct. I mean, and I said yesterday, probably by dinner tonight, that was yesterday, Trump will have to be removed. I mean, I guess it's just the same now. I mean, yesterday people say, yeah, this has to have happened yesterday. This has to have happened yesterday. Now there is no option, because all the limits of sanity have been long since eclipsed and crossed. There is no deeper insanity that we could go find. I mean, he's obviously perfectly insane. Whether it's no matter the description, whether we're talking about perversion, deviation, or simply degradation. Other presidents, if they have trusted advisors, if you're Joe Biden, you have Jake Sullivan, and you also have a respect for discourse, then you don't need to really be paying attention to who the hottest podcasts are, because you trust that your people will bring you everything objectively that you need to be aware of. But the problem with the sycophantic structure here is, at this point, Trump is absolutely isolated from information, because nobody wants to tell him anything that he doesn't want to hear, bad news, as it were. And we have nothing but bad news because of him. #25th Amendment, removal from office yesterday. Dear cabinet members,